Eastern District U.S. House race. Why incumbent Congressman Matt Rosendale says he's dropping out. Also, gang education.
When we think about gang prevention, we have to do a root cause analysis of why.
How the upcoming school safety mill levy could make a difference in a growing problem and making history.
Whatever happens that day, it's already a win. It's like seriously already a win. And it's just the door opening.
We hear from Montana actress Lily Gladstone, who's up for an Oscar this weekend. The MTN News starts right now.
From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 530 News.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this Friday. I'm Russ Riesinger. Montana's U.S. Representative Matt Rosendale has ended his run for a third term. Rosendale making that sudden announcement on social media this morning, blaming the decision on what he calls false rumors against him and his family, as well as a death threat. MTN political reporter Jonathan Ambarian has the latest.
Less than a month ago, Congressman Matt Rosendale officially launched a campaign for U.S. Senate here at the state capitol. After 4 turbulent weeks, he announced Friday that he won't be running for public office at all in 2024.
I don't see the time that I'm spending and the effort that I'm putting forward having the kind of impact that is necessary for me to truly justify staying up here.
On February 9th, Rosendale filed to run for the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate. But he said former President Donald Trump's endorsement of Gallatin County businessman Tim Sheehy was too much to overcome, and suspended his campaign on February 15th. On February 28th, Rosendale announced he'd seek a third term in the House, but he says events since then made him reconsider.
I had a death threat against me, forced me to get law enforcement, actually Capitol Police, to get law enforcement out to my children's homes. We had these false and defamatory statements and rumors coming out against me. And so that all of that begins to weigh on your decision about what you should be doing.
Rosendale said he also recognized that re-entering the House race created uncertainty for the 9 Republicans who had announced plans to run for the Eastern District seat.
And I can go back and reclaim the title that I enjoy most, which is Pop, to my grandchildren, and spend some time back at the ranch. And the very capable people and qualified people that are already signed up to try and win that seat, then they can pursue it going forward.
Rosendale told me he does not plan to endorse a candidate in the GOP primary. He said he's frustrated his efforts to demand reductions in federal spending haven't been more successful, but he intends to serve out the remainder of his term. So the race for the Eastern Congressional District remains wide open. Monday is the deadline for candidates to file, so we should have a clear picture of the fields in this and other Montana races by the end of the day. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Billings police have made an arrest in a double kidnapping that happened late last night. Officers responded to the Motel 6 off of Midland Road just before midnight for a kidnapping of 2 juveniles. The 2 were located a short time later without injuries, and a suspect was arrested just a short distance away from where the original call came from. Police told MTN News there was a connection between the victims and the suspect, and this was not a random act. Gangs have been a growing problem here in Billings, with many young people getting involved in violence. One of the things the upcoming school safety mill levy would provide for is gang prevention education. KITCH's David J. talked with the superintendent today about how it could make a difference.
If the mill levy were to pass, it implements some of those safety measures, and a lot of it involves just some lessons in the classrooms that would keep kids from dropping out.
And actually 81% of kids that drop from school, they have done so because they don't feel that there are opportunities that connect their lives to the real world.
Superintendent Dr. Erwin Garcia says keeping kids in school is one of the key ways to keep them out of gangs. So a large chunk of the $5 million levy will emphasize basics such as reading. He says kids who drop out are 3 times more likely to be imprisoned.
Most of the kids that we see in our community that could be vulnerable for gangs are students that unfortunately have dropped out from school.
Mental health specialists, counselors, gang prevention specialists, and more school resource officers are also part of the proposal.
And we need specialized supports to enhance the footprint of the caring adult in the building.
School District 2 had considered the possibility of using gang resistance education and training, or GREAT, but that will no longer be part of the proposal. The company that runs that program says it is not doing training at this time, but it also promotes the idea of building relationships with officers and other school personnel who may inform the kids about avoiding gangs.
Make them more resilient in being able to make good choices and work through ways of how to say no if they need to say no.
Mina Harris of the Institute for Governmental Research oversees the GREAT program and says this approach has worked since the 1990s.
One more component to help combat the violence, the community violence and the gun violence.
And School District 2 also has some ways to deal with potential violence.
Kids learn how to respect. Kids learn how to be empathetic, how to have positive conversations, and how to refrain from bullying or teasing.
In Billings, David J., MTN News.
And good Friday early evening, everyone. Taking a live look outside from our Stockman Bank camera. You can see the sun up, and the sun angle is going to be a lot different by this time Sunday evening. At this time, we're going to have daylight saving time, but we're not quite there yet. We had a very spring-like day today. Temperatures a little bit above average this afternoon, 48 degrees, lots of sunshine, and a 27-mile-an-hour wind gust. However, by Sunday, these numbers are going to change. We're going to have sunrise Sunday morning at 7:34, sunset at 7:14. So Saturday night when you go to bed, make sure you remember to spring forward an hour. Right now we're still hanging on to those 40s, 47 degrees right now. Not quite as much wind as an hour ago, 13 miles an hour to the southwest. Our 7-day forecast coming up in a few minutes.
Today is International Women's Day, a day to celebrate women everywhere. As our Marcus Kakova reports, one Billings organization brought together some of the most inspirational women in Montana to share their experiences for the sake of empowering local female leadership.
I won't pretend to have a complete understanding of struggles unique to women. Anything otherwise is a willful ignorance.
It's just the reality of the world that women face obstacles that men don't.
Thankfully, the Junior League of Billings, which held its 8th annual Women's Leadership Conference, is an organization of enlightenment.
I look up to all of these women in this room because I think they all have something to share with me to help me on my journey.
One Helena woman in particular.
The first word that comes to mind is badass. She is someone that you could look up to, that is for sure.
Says she spent much of her life wondering if she was enough.
I'm really good at hunting terrorists, and so I love hunting the terrorists in people's minds now.
Lieutenant Colonel Alani Bankhead is a career military officer and special agent.
I tried to become an intelligence officer. They said no. I did everything I could to get to South America to bust the drug lords. They said no. And then this opportunity kept coming up where they were like, well, what about becoming a special agent?
From Iraq to Japan, among many other countries, she's tracked some of the most serious criminals on the planet.
Being a military agent, chased terrorists and spies, and my actual passion is protecting children from sexual exploitation. So I've done a lot of human trafficking, child sex exploitation cases.
But with all of her accomplishment, she says she still found self-doubt, imposter syndrome.
I looked around and I was like, okay, I made it. Why don't I feel happier? Why aren't I thriving? And it was because I was trying to meet everybody else's expectations.
She now shares her story at events like the Women's Leadership Conference to inspire others to lay their doubts to rest.
I mean, that's all we can hope for, right? Is just to be seen and known and accepted and told that you actually do matter.
Marcus Kakova, MTN News.
Montana's own Lily Gladstone already has a Golden Globe to her credit, and this weekend is in the running for an Oscar for her performance in Killers of the Flower Moon. Kelsey Boggs talked with Gladstone about her success that she says she shares with Indian country.
Art House's annual Oscars party this Sunday here at the Babcock has been a date circled on members' calendars for months. And one vote in particular will have all eyes watching to see if Montanan Lily Gladstone will be the first Native American to win an Academy Acting Award. But she wouldn't be the first on stage.
51 years ago at the 1973 Oscars, Marlon Brando was honored with the award for Best Actor in The Godfather.
Marlon Brando.
In a powerful move, Sasheen Littlefeather, an Apache woman, spoke on his behalf, rejecting the award due to the way Native Americans were treated in film and media.
He very regretfully cannot accept this very generous award.
Littlefeather was met with anger and boos from the crowd.
Excuse me.
As the president of the National Native American Affirmative Image Committee, Littlefeather spoke about hopes for the future.
In the future, our hearts and our understandings will meet with love and generosity.
Now, 5 decades later,
not only am I stepping out right now, but I'm stepping out in community of so many other people that are just popping off.
Lily Gladstone is making history as the first Native American woman to be nominated in the Best Actress category, recognized for her performance in Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon.
It's a lot of spotlight and it's a lot of attention for one person to carry. It's a lot of representation to fall on one person.
Born and raised in Browning, Gladstone grew up on the Blackfeet Indian Reservation and graduated from the University of Montana. She was the first Indigenous person to receive a Golden Globe this January. She was praised following her Golden Globes acceptance speech, in which she spoke her native language and gave a shout out to every little res kid.
I had no idea the kind of impact it would have to just do the bare minimum of language that I could. It is pretty remarkable that 50 years ago was that moment, that first call out of how natives are represented in the media. I've kind of joked for years, just like, if that ever happens to me, maybe I'll send Marlon Brando's kids up on stage to accept for me or something. Except on behalf of Brando.
She says the recognition is a win in itself and hopes it's just the start for Indigenous actors.
It is another huge milestone in history to even have this nomination. I'm carrying this nomination right now. Whatever comes out of March 10th, whatever happens that day, it's already a win. All of you Native kids just who have a spark and an interest in this, it's like, really, you're next.
In Billings, Kelsey Boggs, MTN News.
Ahead on the MTN 530 News here on Q2, the road to recovery. A young Hardin man making incredible progress after being left paralyzed in a hit and run. And semifinal Friday at state basketball tournaments, the highlights on the way.